Okay, I believe we are live. How's it going, everyone? We are going to be doing the competition results today. As you guys can see, I'm in the new setup here. This is the exclusive sneak peek that you guys are getting. Yeah, I moved back to Toronto, so now I'm in the Eastern time zone, as Geisha mentioned. This new room is a bit smaller, so I'm still trying to learn how everything sounds in here. But anyways, let me know how you guys are doing. We'll do the audio test, so let me know if the mic is sounding good. Then we'll do the music audio test, and then we'll just have at it. I have the winners all written down right here next to me. And I will slowly reveal them one by one. But yeah, let me know how you guys are doing. And let me know how the mic is sounding. Red Bunny's in here. Good to see you, Red Bunny. We had the submissions for this competition were very good. I was very surprised at how high quality each and every single one of these beats were. Silva, how's it going? Versum, MCI. Corbin's here. Mic is sounding good. Excellent, excellent. So let's quickly jump into one of these beats and let me know if the audio sounds good here as well. So yeah, let me know if that sounds good. Mic is clear. Grizzle, how's it going? Uncle P's in here. Marcinko Orzosco, how's it going? Sorry if I butchered your name there. Glad I'm figuring out the new space. Yeah, I've just been listening to music for like the last week in here, just trying to learn how everything sounds and how some of my favorite beats in production, certain things sound different here. The kicks are very boomy in this room. So I think one of the problems here, I'll quickly show you guys, is that I'm actually facing a gigantic window here with a view of downtown. So there's no way, whoops, I bumped into the mic there. Sorry if that was alarming once again, but there's no way that I can like put sound treatments on like the window. So I'm kind of stuck with trying to figure out how this sounds. Audio is good, awesome, crisp. Jack the Ox is in here. Flo, Lassetti, good to see you again. Derek Graves here. Leon, how's it going? The whole gang is in here. Great view for sure. The last spot that I was in, it was in my basement in the house. And yeah, it got very gloomy towards the end just because it just becomes very overbearing and oppressive to not have like any natural light, whereas this is just natural light all day long, which is nice. The movie go nice and smooth. The drive was fine. Our stuff, we use like a U-Haul box. When it got here, our lock was missing, and it seems like someone tried to cut it open, or they did cut it open. Luckily nothing was stolen though, just because it was just full of random junk. So yeah, all's well that ends well. All our stuff is here. I still have to put up some of the posters on this wall back here for the background for the YouTube videos. Yeah, I got all like my I'll show you here, a bunch of vinyl and stuff, all my books and whatnot. Yeah, there's a poster and stuff, and I got some audio panels. Not 100% sure whether they're actually going to be effective or if there's any point in using them, but yeah, I thought it might be just a good idea just for visual appeal also in the videos. At work, trying to listen best I can. Well, thank you for tuning in. There's going to be the replay that's also posted up in case you gotta bounce. Links as new account. Grimy Duck Beats, interesting new name. 93 and a quarter studio, how's it going? Deleg is here. Yeah, it's pretty good. Nothing was taken. In the end, no green screen. I mean, green screen's still a possibility. I don't know what I would use it for though. I'm gonna try to. I'm gonna overhaul my videos going forward. I'm gonna try to use an editor to see if that helps. But overall, like, I don't think that the problem with my YouTube videos is a lack of me floating around in space doing green screen. It'd be helpful with like stupid funny stuff, but other than that, yeah, who's to say? Maybe it will come. I think you're the same record player, the Audio Technica. It is an Audio Technica record player. My brother broke it though, so it's not, well, it still works, but the case is cracked and like the thing that houses the needle is broken, so I still gotta hook that thing up. Right now it's just for visual appeal. Mystical Impact, how's it going? Watching this before going to see the Tour de France in person. That's cool. Trademark. I didn't know you were, oh, you're in Europe for your vacation right now, I think you mentioned. Is that what you're doing? Good to have you here then. It's probably like 4 p.m. there or something. John Sherby, good morning from the West Coast. It's probably very early. So let's just jump right into it, guys. Thank you guys for submitting for the competition. We have 3 prizes that we will be giving away. Actually 4 technically. So we have the favorite beat of mine. So that's just whoever made the favorite beat that I like the most. That's pretty self-explanatory. Obviously, if you made a guitar type beat, for example, you'd probably have a hard time winning that category. It's a very subjective category. So the idea would be for you guys to sort of think about, you know, what types of beats I make and what type of things I like, just from, you know, watching my YouTube videos and stuff and seeing if you can make something that would appeal to me. The second prize is the People's Champion, the BB Gang's favorite beat. I tallied up all the votes and I have the winner right here next to me on this piece of paper. And the third prize is the almost there but still cool beat. This is someone who has like a cool idea in their beat, but just maybe there's some certain things around the beat itself that could use a little bit more refinement, or just the person can use a little bit more help. And so I'll sit down with that person and have a one-on-one with them for like an hour or so. I've done it with Mixter Mom. I've done it with Rob. I'm not sure whether any of them are there, but they said that it really helped them just gain a little bit more insight into their own production, what they could make adjustments with. So I think that's a very, that's a prize that's very, very helpful for a lot of people. And then finally, we have the $25 voter. So that's thank you for everyone who voted for the BB Gang's favorite beat. One of you voters will be winning $25 just for participating. This is how people should get, politicians should get people to vote. Just be like, hey, we're gonna have a lottery. Whoever is gonna vote, one person's gonna win the lottery or something. I think that would really get voting numbers up. But then again, maybe politicians don't want that. East Coast is killing you. Don't get to bed as early as I wanted just to wake up for this. East Coast, wait, it's 11 a.m. on the East Coast, isn't it? Or am I in some other weird time zone that I don't know about? So yeah, let's just start with the $25 winner. So here I have a giant wheel. We had 50 people vote. And once again, thank you all for voting. So we will spin the wheel. Whoever's name it lands on is going to end up winning 25 big ones. This is what you guys all came for, isn't it? You just want to see this thing spin. I know I'm definitely excited. So let's just jump into it. Before we do though, let me know if you guys have any questions or any comments or anything to say about the competition. Like I mentioned before, this was a very, very the level of quality with this competition, I think, compared to like the last one, there's a very big jump up. I mean, you guys made some really, really phenomenal beats here. Like, there's only 2 or 3 beats from what I remember that I felt like, you know, this is probably someone who might need a little bit more help. And I think based off of their email and their name, they're just people who just signed up recently, which is completely fair. But most of the guys and girls who have been here from like last year and over, 6 months, it's pretty incredible to see how great a lot of your guys' beats are. So kudos to you guys. Eric's loving the wheel. I'm loving the wheel too. Anybody else looking for their email? So I had 50 people submit, and they all should be here. Hopefully you guys voted in time, but gotta hit up vowels first. Oh, I see what you're talking about. All right, here we go, guys. The spin is about to commence. Best of luck to all of you. And the winner is... Oh, the anticipation. Who is that? Oh, Justina F. Hall. That is Mixter Mom. Congratulations to Mixter Mom. You are getting a cool $25 in your pocket. Huge. Everyone join me in congratulating Mixter Mom. That was wild. I should just end the stream right now because this is the pinnacle of how good it's going to get. Only here for the chance of winning $25. I love how tight it gets in the center. I made a few beats but didn't submit because if it didn't feel like nothing was realized and been too focused on life itself. That's fair. Thank you for attempting though. There we go, guys. Mixter Mom is probably gonna buy a new house with this earnings. This is reminding me of the Danny Brown podcast. First time I saw this wheel. Does he use this as well? I love Danny Brown. All right, so that's that decided. I'll put a little check mark here. And now let's go into the beats themselves. Let's start with the winner of we'll do the People's Champ first. So based off of the voting, the person who got the most votes won this one. Percentage wise, let me see here. There's a lot. There's probably 4 or 5 beats that most people just really loved. And I also realized that on my end, after I listened to all the beats, I had to decide between around 4 or 5, and a lot of you guys in the Discord are saying I'm having a hard time between these 4 or 5 beats, and the voting also reflected that. This person won by, I believe, 2 votes. They got 16% of the votes, so the next person probably got like 14, so it's a very small margin. With all these winners, actually, like even with my own personal favorite beat, I had a tough time to figuring out which one I wanted to choose. But the person who won the People's Champion Prize, the BB Gang's favorite beat, is Karasama Beats. Congratulations to Karasama. Phenomenal beat here. Let's take a listen and jump right in. My apologies. Was the mic on that whole time then? I am a bozo. So yeah, what I was saying was a lot of you guys also like that beat. A lot of people said that was their favorite or second favorite. It was definitely up there. Some of the things that I really loved about it was just the overall design was just very intelligent. So the bass line, which is very present and very bouncy, was the sort of main, someone read lips, was the main driving force of the beat, and just the way everything was designed around it, like the harp riffs, the vocals, the organ stabs that came in and out, just an interesting sort of collage approach where sounds were constantly coming in and out, but the bass line and the drum loop as well were the sort of driving force. And I think it just goes to the idea, Medea, how's it going? Good to see you. It goes to the idea that like you don't really need to complicate every single layer. Like the bass line, obviously it sounds great, but I wouldn't go as far as saying that like it was a sort of revolutionary idea. I think everything was just very strong and very well put together. The drum work on here as well, I know Karasama had been like experimenting with using drums and like recording live drums. I think his skill at that has vastly improved as well, because the drum work in this beat is just very tight and it fit very, very well. Just phenomenal control of all the different sounds. The sequencing was great as well. So for the hook, I know exactly where it came in. It was just like he used all of the shaker plus all the sounds and all the layers at once. And then for the verse section, he sort of took away a lot of those layers and just implemented and using them all across at different times. Just overall, it's very smart. Has he been using the MPC? I didn't know that. Drums were simple but swaggy. So yeah, I think the drum work and the bass line, just such a strong sort of core to build around. He just used such interesting, unique layers around those two things to really make the beat stand out. So yeah, like I mentioned, I think this is just a great showcasing of not every single layer in your beat should be sort of out there and crazy. So one of the problems that I see with a lot of producers is that every single layer that they want to include into their beat, they'll sort of push them to be as sort of zany and crazy as possible. They'll use like a snare that just has the weirdest color to it, a bass line that's like completely strange, and every single sound and every single layer in their beat just ends up standing out, but almost in a bad way. Whereas if you're just very strong and very controlled with some of the sounds in your beat, like in this example, it'd be the drums and the bass, you can start to play around with more unique textures around those things. And this goes to the idea of like, what's the POI? What's the texture that you want to stand out the most? And it might be a good idea on the sort of secondary sounds to be a little bit more conservative and not have those be as in your face. So I think this is just phenomenal work at that concept as well. Simple but effective, says KODB. Really great textures on those drums. Yeah, it's exactly it. Clean and simple, usable plus hit, says Derek Graves. So yeah, I think phenomenal job to Karasama. I'll probably have to DM him since he's not here, but awesome job to him. So let's go on to the second beat, or the second prize that we'll announce here, which is the almost there but still cool beat. So this is a beat that has a really unique idea in it that I really like, but just some of the stuff around the idea just needs a little bit more work, a little bit more refinement. So I want to work one-on-one with this person to help them. And then yeah, there were a few, actually, I should say, candidates for this. Some of the beats, I really like the idea, but I could tell that there was skill outside of just that core idea. So I didn't think that they sort of needed the one-on-one. There were certain ideas that, there's one particular beat that really stood out to me as really good, but it was only like 50 seconds long, so I wasn't sure whether that would be a good candidate. Either way, though, I'm rambling. The winner of this prize is, drum roll please, It is Yo Nurldy, or rnodhis@gmail.com. So let's take a listen to this beat. This is the winner of the one-on-one prize that I will be sitting with this person and helping them with their beats. All right, that was Yo Nurldy's beat, Schoolboy Q type beat. So what jumped out to me about this beat was just the core idea of it was really phenomenal. The sort of sounds that you heard, that loop that was built in the first like 10 seconds of the beat. I really loved how ethereal it sounded. It sounded like there's a lot of processing, a lot of good sound design work on it. I love the sort of vocal or the pad that's sort of sitting in the background. I'm not sure whether the video that accompanied the actual beat itself sort of showed you what all the different layers were, but I really liked the core idea in here. I think the issue was that the drum work plus the bass line and the bass textures could have definitely used a little bit of work and a little bit of sound design on those as well. And I felt like the bass didn't really sit in a great spot. Much of the additional sounds throughout the hook section as well didn't really feel like they integrated into the beat as well. They felt a little bit stocky. So it felt like the core loop in this beat was very, very well done, very cohesive. Everything felt very good, but then everything around it just didn't really integrate well with that idea. So I want to sit with Nurldy to really, hopefully, help him sort of work with those secondary beat making skills outside of building a core loop to hopefully improve his beats. Mark says, I remember this one. It was really nice, good stuff. Congrats. Always excited to see another Reason user. Oh, that was a Reason? I had no idea what that was. This is cool. I really like the pacing, pretty buzzy. I enjoyed this one, but it seems like the 808 was out of key or just played too high and was distracting. So yeah, I had the same feeling where it felt like the 808 sat in a higher frequency compared to where it should be. So I think the 808 selection there was just a little bit off. Really cool ideas, really dreamy vibe. I like it. Yeah, it's one of the things that stood out to me as well. It just had a very cool, unique core idea, which I like. There are so many good beats in this list. I'm happy that I didn't have to make the decision. Yeah, that was a tough one for me as well. It took the whole week basically. Such a cool community. I love the diversity and talent that everyone brings to the table. Thank you, Jack. It's good to have you in the community as well, but I definitely agree. There's just a lot of strong producers in this community, especially as we move forward and forward. Listening to the guys that especially were here since like a few months after the course opened, to see how much progress there's been is just crazy. Will this be a video I can rewatch? Yes. So in the Discord, if you go into the past stream section, you can see pretty much every single beat review stream that we've ever done. So this is going to be one of them. I see now the beat I submitted is not on the list. Maybe it has been deleted. If that's the case, you can, yeah, right here. That's odd. Copy and paste it into the thing now, and I'll take a look. I think I remember listening to yours, actually. It might have just gotten deleted recently, but I feel like I do remember listening to your beat. Yeah, so that is the one-on-one winner. Now the best beat, this one again is just the one that I personally like the best. It was very, very tough to choose from. There were 5 different beats that I felt I really, really enjoyed. They all stood out to me for very different reasons, actually. Very diverse sounds to all of them. I made the selection even before seeing what you guys responded to and what you guys liked. So without further ado, the winner of the best beat prize is also Karasama once again. I voted exactly the same way you guys did, even before knowing. So congrats to Karasama. He is the dual prize winner this time. So he's winning $1,000, which is pretty crazy. I will be PayPaling him 1,000 smackers. And yeah, it's no point listening to his beat again. That'd be kind of weird. But once again, it's just great design. I really, really loved it. And it just edged out the few other beats that I really, really liked as well. Just because of the sort of, you know, there's no real way to explain it. I just really love the elegance of how the beat was designed. Not to say the other beats that I really liked were unelegant, but it was just something, you know, just something about this beat. And I think a lot of you guys agree, since it was a People's Champ as well, that it was a great, great beat. So congrats to Karasama for being our first ever dual prize winner. He was actually my first ever student, now that I think about it. He's been in the course since the very beginning. Actually, no, I think Grout was the first person that was in the course. But Karasama was the first paying member, I should say. And so awesome to have him make so much progress. And I was talking to him a couple of days ago, and he said he's finally starting to earn income with his beats as well, which makes me really, really happy. So it's awesome to see how much progress he's made. I had a feeling that would happen, that there would be a double winner. Do we get to hear the other favorites? Yeah, sure, I'll play them. It really makes sense for him to win both prizes. Oh, Lissetti. Lissetti also had a very strong beat as well. I think, you know what, let's just listen to some of these other beats, and I'll comment on some of the ones that other people also really enjoyed. There were a lot of beats that got votes, I'll say that. It wasn't as if all the votes went to like a handful of beats. Like I mentioned, Karasama won that with 16% of the votes. The next one was like 14. So a lot of people had people voting for them. So don't feel like if you're outside of the handful of people that got those votes that, you know, no one liked your beat. A lot of people made some phenomenal beats here, which is crazy. So let's jump into some of these other beats. So one of the other very, very strong contenders that got a lot of votes as well was Cora Beats. Once again, I don't think that's a surprise. Cora came very, very close on the People's Champ and also my personal favorite best beat. So let's take a listen to Cora's beat here.
don't think insurance will protect that shit. I'm off a 30 milligram, I pop it like a Skittle. I know that's a lot, but I feel like it's a little. Red Solo, drinking by my individual. When I'm real high, she be somewhere in the middle. Always in the right place at the wrong time. Off Vine, she a lightweight, off of red wine. When I see her out, she follow me all night. Wake up in the morning and follow me online. In her real life, she do what she wanna do. Got the same feeling she did when she 22. 28 now, the titties are fake now. She live in LA, heard that she fucking with Drake now. That's crazy. I had to give you the breakdown. That's what the bitch has been up to. I had to give you the update and give it the upgrade. I had to give you the part 2 and it go like, okay, what you wanna say? Know you in the games I don't really wanna play. Know you think I changed, but you haven't been the same. And it's getting kinda late, I don't really wanna stay. But can you blame me? They want to play me. I want a million, they want a baby. I've been trying to deal with this shit, I'm going crazy. This life gon' kill me, nobody gonna save me. Okay, what you wanna say? Know you in the games I don't really wanna play. Know you think I changed, but you haven't been the same. And it's getting kinda late, I don't really wanna stay. But can you blame me? They want to play me. I want a million, they want a baby. I've been trying to deal with this shit, I'm going crazy. This life gon' kill me, nobody gonna save me, save me.
All right, that was off 30 milligrams by Cora Beats. I'm not sure what you're referring to there, Cora. Is that 30 milligrams of aspirin maybe? I'm not sure. I'm not going to say anything more because I don't want to get demonetized. Phenomenal beat there though. Let's see what you guys are saying. KODB, I love this track. Fire, this is heat. I love the perks. Also nice beat switch. I love the change up. The vocals with this beat were crazy. Billboard stuff. Fire. Switch up like a very solid beat and song. Who's rapping? Cal Scrubby, the rapper reminds me of G-Eazy. That was very, very great work on the aspirin for sure. That was great. Yeah, just this is a very, very close beat as well. I really, really loved the production on this Cora. I like the part with the vocals especially, so I think you're doing a phenomenal job with taking that next step to make sure your beats are actually rappable by using vocals, and I think this was a perfect display of that because the beat really, really came together towards that section. And what's interesting is that the first section compared to the section with the rapping, you minimize the beat a little bit and you sort of notice that the beat probably felt a little bit more balanced if you sort of reduced how many layers there were when you have the rapping. So I think you're learning that learning how much layers you typically would need to get a vocal performance to actually stand out. But the way that you use the vocal here was phenomenal. I think the beat itself, sound selection was top tier, which is something that you always excel at. The beat during that section I really, really enjoyed. I would say that one of the things that probably hurt the beat in terms of, again, this is like me having to nitpick to choose one winner. One of the things that sort of was a bit of a drawback here was something that we talked about before when we talked about how when we watched the Great British Bake Off, if there's someone who makes multiple cakes in one sitting or for one competition, even if the strongest cake is phenomenal, you're always going to be judged by like the weakest component, the weakest cake that you make. And I think for this particular beat, I really, really loved the beat once the vocal came in and the sort of sounds that you used for that section. I wasn't as crazy about the first beat that was in this beat, the very first section before the switch up. There were certain instruments that I felt didn't really stand out and sound as good. And there's a little bit of like bleeding with one of the bell sounds in the back. It was a little bit too present, and so the first 30 seconds or so I did not enjoy it as much as a switch up. So I think if you just kept that beat for the switch up and sort of worked with that idea for the whole beat, maybe that would have put you over. Again, this is just me nitpicking and having to come up with a reason why, but you were very, very close. This is overall just a phenomenal beat, and just like Mark says, so much character. Great beat so far, guys. Gotta go. See you later, trademark. Hopefully you enjoy all the cycling. Better beat Baker Gang, exactly. So yeah, I think Cora's, phenomenal at what he does. He's made so much progress, and he's only been producing, I think he said, under 2 years now, which is fucking wild because I was so bad when I was 2 years in. So it's really awesome to see how much progress he's making, as well as all you guys. So congrats to Cora for getting very, very close. Cora, you were very, very close. So let's jump into another random beat. Let's see what Lynx has for us. Let's hear his submission here. I'm not sure why the thing isn't letting me to copy and paste for some reason. That was Link's beat there. To answer your question, Leon, which and how many beats are you going to listen to? So we're going to listen to your guys' submissions for like the next hour and a half. I'm just going to go randomly and we'll just take a listen to see what you guys did and just do typical reviews. And like I mentioned before, every beat here is going to get reviewed either by me during this stream, and then the ones that I don't get to, my team members, Cora, as well as Harmiter, are going to email everyone that didn't get reviewed by me and give you personalized reviews themselves. These guys, just like you heard Cora's beat there, they know what they're doing and they're very, very strong at producing, so they can give you some great feedback. So yeah, if you submitted for the competition, no matter what, you will get feedback on your beat. Yeah. So Jack says, I like the groove and the sounds are cool. I actually made a beat for a friend of mine who requested something aggressive. Grammy Ducks beats. Dark beats are my favorite. Some Tech 9 stuff right here sounds like Corey Taylor should be featuring on it, giving me that 90s Toonami vibe. So yeah, with this beat here, I also agree that I really, really like the dark direction to the beat. There are definitely some really interesting textures in this beat. The drum work was really, really good as well. I really like the drum loop that you came up with and the textures that were used here. They fit very well together. I think the thing that sort of hurt this beat, in my opinion, was that the textures were a little bit too chaotic around the drum work. So it sounded like you had a very good core, idea with the drum work, but in terms of the musicality around it, there's just a overall lack of progression. And just like you said, you wanted to make something that's a little bit more aggressive, and I think the overall philosophy that you used here to get an aggressive feel was definitely on point, which is that you don't want it to be super musical, super melodic. You want this sort of driving force where everything feels a little bit amelodic and everything feels a little bit monotonous in a way. But nonetheless, even if you do have that sort of aggressive driving force, creating small little riffs here and there, creating some small idea where there's at least some part of your loop that has a tiny bit of a progression can definitely help create a more dynamic sounding beat. Just because I felt like this was a little bit too one key, one note all across. The low end felt a bit muddy as well. I think it sounded like the guitar as well as the bass were sort of bleeding into one another. I will say though that this room that I'm in might be causing that issue. I still have to learn it, but that's something that jumped out to me. Overall though, I think like you mentioned, you want to create something aggressive, so I think the intent here and the sort of techniques and approach that you're deploying here are definitely exactly what you want to do. It's just make sure you don't lean way too forward into using those ideas and make it completely monotonous. You still do want to create some sort of musicality and introduce some sort of riffs here and there just to keep the listening experience from sounding too one note. And you definitely did some great drum work here, and I also appreciate the arrangement effort. You sort of put effort into creating different sections, so it's not a completely monotonous experience. It's not like you just copy and pasted the same loop over and over again. So I definitely appreciate that. I think it's just the overall philosophy just was taken to a little bit of an extreme. So yeah, just make sure you introduce something that can help break up the experience in terms of adding musicality here and there. Overall, awesome job with links. Let's jump into Andrew Silva's beat here. Andrew Silva's been a course member for a very long time as well. All right, that was Andrew Silva. We've got Flo commenting here, one of the favorites of the competition for Flo. And he said the same thing in the chat as well. So 2022 Strings by Andrew Silva. I like this one a lot. I could definitely hear a rapper over it, says Damien. Trying very hard not to Millie Rock right now. Very nice beat. One of the top beats when I was choosing which beat to vote for. Uncle P says damn good stuff. Great introspective vibe, says John Sherby. Solid trap beat. I like the piano tone. So yeah, I think with this beat, I really loved the sound selection of Andrew's here. Everything really sounded unique in terms of the melodic instrumentation that was chosen. It sounded like, I'm not 100% sure, but was there like a sample that was used as a loop and then layers on top? I'm not 100% sure how Andrew built this beat. I think Andrew is in here somewhere. Maybe he can clear it up, or maybe he left. I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, the sound design as well as the sound selection was great. And just like Jack mentioned, I really like the piano tone when the beat sort of minimized a tiny bit and he introduced his own sound on top of that loop. That really worked well. So it sounded like the musicality really came together. A trap beat, as we could hear, and I think the drum work was great. I think the one thing that I would say with this beat is that I would have liked a little bit more sort of effort put into the arrangement. So the way that Andrew kept the beat changing was using this very typical pitch up, pitch down. It sounded like half time on and off during the arrangement, and then every once in a while he would duck all the drums off and just play the piano, which definitely did sound good. But I just would have liked if there's a little bit more effort put into like the transitions, as well as trying to integrate the full beat plus that piano, as opposed to just ducking everything down and creating something that feels more like a hook where it just has high energy. Not to say that the arrangement here doesn't work, because it definitely does. I could definitely see a rapper using this, but again, just for my own sake of wanting to make sure that you guys are pushing yourselves and making sure that I don't get you guys to just rest on your laurels. The arrangement approach with this beat was definitely something that a lot of people use right now, so I sort of want to make sure that Andrew has the capability of implementing other arrangement ideas rather than just using the exact same approach over and over again, because that's something that I do see not from you guys, but when I used to do the public beat streams, so many people would use a loop, add drums on top of it, and then for the hook they would just remove the drums, and then they just loop the exact same thing over and over again, and that can make for a very uninteresting beat. And so I always want to try to push you guys to try to instill different arrangement ideas and using the framework that's in the course of just it can be very powerful to just change the rhythm of sounds, the certain notes, size, or maybe even replacing sounds. You'd be surprised how far and how much material that can supply you with when trying to create the different parts of your beat. So yeah, overall Silva, Andrew, it doesn't look like he's here, but cool beat. I really enjoyed it. I don't think you participate in many of the other challenges, so I would like to see Andrew Silva's production more around these parts. Let's take a listen next to Lissetti's beat here. Again, we're going completely random. right, that was Lissetti's beat there. Let's pop you in as reviewed. I like the wonky feel to this beat. I like the calm, dark mood. The vinyl cracking is nice too, definitely a mood. While the kind of off-kilter is a bit interesting, it all seems off-key, rhythm, etc. Just clashes with itself, says John. Hard, says Jack. I like the slower tempo, but it may be slightly too minimal for it. Seems like it'd be a hard pocket for an artist to get into. Sorry. I could turn this into a bedtime story. So I think I definitely see what some of you guys are saying. I think the core elements of this beat were there. I think the way it was constructed was very, very well put together as well. So it felt like all the spaces in the beat were definitely filled. So like you mentioned with the vinyl cracking in the high end, I think the low end was very full. The elements that were chosen as a musical instrumentation sat in the sort of low, mid, and mid areas. So I think, and overall, there was like a bit of depth as well with the, I'm not sure whether it was like an organ sound that was pushed way back into the beat. There was a very sustained sound sitting somewhere back, but overall, it felt like the beat was full in terms of where everything sat in the frequency space, stereo space, depth, and a good assortment of shapes as well. Hazard Beats, how's it going? I think what I would agree with in terms of what you guys are saying is that it felt like the POI could have been used in a more interesting way. So outside of the drums and the bass, you had that some really interesting, unique texture, but it only played once per bar. And in terms of what it did, it would just play one note and then one note, and it sounded like after that it got pitched up an octave and it played once again. I think I would have just liked a little bit more movement, because as to what Red Octane was saying, this beat was a little bit more slow tempo, and the way that the instrumentation or that texture was used was very, very minimal. And I think it was used a little bit too minimally, just because it often felt like there just was not enough going on, there wasn't enough movement. So if that same texture was used a little bit more melodically, let's say instead of just having one note every bar, just create some sort of musical riff with that texture, or maybe even introducing one new element in that was a little bit more melodic, that just has a little bit more movement. That could have been enough to make the beat feel a little bit more full and complete. But just with the amount that there is in this beat right now, it just felt a little bit too minimal. But once again, Lissetti's made a huge progress, and it always feels like the beats are full, and he's just done a great job of making sure his approach to production is just very, very robust, and he knows what he's doing. I think with this beat in particular, it's just a little bit of a miss with how much textures were used. But once again, Lissetti's made some phenomenal beats in past competitions, so I'm not too worried about it. It just happens every once in a while. DDD Sharp Vision, how's it going? You missed the winners, but we've got some pretty good beats going on here. So yeah, let's continue on. Let's see what Arlo has for us here. I remember this was also one of the beats that I really, really liked, just because it was very different from the rest of the beats. So out of all the beats in this competition, I think this is the one that stood out in terms of the approach that was taken with this beat. So that was Arlo's beat there, or RLO, I should say. This was very, very close to winning as well. So I'll explain my thought process here, what you guys are saying. Let me see what the chat's saying. That vocal sample was pure gas. Love this beat, very Drake-esque. So I heard Drake's new album was very dancey, but a lot of people didn't like it. But I like dance music, so I might check it out. Let me know what you guys thought about the new Drake album and whether you think I should listen to it. Uncle P says, damn, didn't listen to this one. That vocal leveled up so much. Great job. Great groove and overall composition. Was one of my top 2 to pick from. Had this on repeat for a while, says John. I feel like me and John, we have very similar tastes. We seem to really like the same types of beats. Digging the groove, drum samples from Where. I think the vocals made a huge difference in most beats. The voice is its own instrument. Definitely agree there. Nice work. It takes it to a very different place. So yeah, like I mentioned, this was oh, there he is, NN. NN triple, yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, like I mentioned, this was one of the beats that really stood out to me just because it was, you know, it's a more dance-esque type of beat. It has a 4 on the floor kick pattern. And it's just by virtue of that, it stood out a lot more. The drum work on this beat was just phenomenal. Great sound design, the attention to detail with the hi-hats and making sure they aren't just like the same velocity. I also noticed it sounded like there were some effects put onto maybe like a flanging or some sort of stereo effect put onto the hi-hats and the clap. I really love the sort of double clap pattern where you had at the end of each bar. That was just awesome. I sampled a K Tronada song, forgot which. If I had to nitpick, that key change at 1 minute something was a little surprising, says Grizzle. So that's something I'm going to get to. The musical instrumentation was also awesome. I really love that wobbly synth. It felt very dance-esque. It sat in the perfect spot. The vocals, like everyone says, phenomenal. I think if this beat just it felt like a very usable beat. So the way that the beat is right now, maybe those vocals would get in the way if an artist wanted to use it, but you could easily just like duck out those vocals for the actual rapper and then have the vocals come in during the hook. That could definitely be an idea. Or you can just, I think this beat was a standalone by itself, a fun thing to listen to. So the vocals definitely did help fill up a lot of space. Overall, the beat composition was great. Everything felt full. The bass was very smart, very colorful bass, and because that sort of wobbly synth wasn't as pronounced and upfront, he made sure to use something that's a lot more colorful to fill up that low mid. Just very smart there. I think I would agree with Grizzle though. The reason why that the thing that hurt this beat, I should say, is that the arrangement was a little bit awkward in that I would have liked just a little bit more of a traditional arrangement where you figured out how to add more layers to create something that's a little bit bigger, or like I mentioned, you removed the vocals during some part of the verse and then maybe introduce something else to fill up space. But I think that sort of key change that happened where you pitched it up 1 or 2 semitones, I think, it felt a little bit awkward and it didn't really add to the beat in any sense. It just felt like, okay, something slightly different that feels a bit jarring is happening now, but essentially everything after that was the exact same beat. It was just pitched up. So I think that's the one thing that sort of hurt this beat. Once again, it came very close to winning my personal favorite beat. I think the arrangement just, again, I want to make sure that you guys understand that the arrangement can really help a beat feel more full and actually make it an engaging experience. Because if you have one core loop, I mean, that's going to be fun to listen to for like 5-6 seconds. What you do with the arrangement is really going to determine whether it becomes listenable for 3 minutes or so. And so I think just using the sort of principled concepts that are in the course, I think you could have easily taken the chords, that sort of wobbly synth, and maybe use some different chords for some different section of the beat, then that could have been the way you used, or you could have created value through your arrangement, or maybe even just taking a different part of the vocal sample, changing the drum pattern, changing the actual synth and making it a different texture. There's a lot of things you could have done here to help improve the arrangement. But overall, like I mentioned, phenomenal beat, Arlo. That was really, really fun to listen to. I really, really love the sort of audacity to do a little bit more of a dance-esque type of song. And so it's awesome that you took that risk. And I think it definitely did pay off. The core idea was just awesome. So good job to Arlo. Let's jump into Jay Bugsy's beat here. Let's see what Jay Bugsy's got for us. All right, that was Jay Bugsy Beats. I believe this is a newer member to the course. So with this beat, let's see what you guys are saying first. I really like this one, like a minimalist 90s style hip hop, very hard. The person says nice perks. The beat reminds me a little of This Is America. Wait, is my mic on? It is on. Totally usable for an artist. The drop of the bass is hard. Love the energy of this one while being nice and open. One thing I did notice though was that there's no bass during the verse section. Flows nice. Love the old school feel. Feels open. I think this has some good bones to it, especially in the sub, but it feels like the sound selection is the hindrance here. So my takeaway with this beat is that I can definitely understand the approach here of, it felt very 90s, early 2000s Neptunes, Swiss beats type of thing, where it's meant to be a little bit more minimal for sure, and it's definitely meant to be a little bit more bare bones. But I think when you take this approach, you definitely do need to make sure that the textures themselves are interesting and unique sounding. And I think, just as John Sherby alluded to, the sound selection here is what sort of hurt this beat. So all the core sounds that were used in this beat felt very stocky to me. So you had that sort of guitar sound that felt like it came from like a Casio type of thing. It didn't have any processing, and overall it just didn't really feel like a POI to me. It just felt like this is a sound that you can sort of just pull up from Citrus or something and make a beat out of it. It just didn't jump out to me as anything interesting. And so once you make a minimal beat, it's going to be very, very important to make sure that the sounds themselves are what's going to add value, because you're not doing anything especially musical or rhythmic just because it's so minimal. But I think the value of those instruments was just not strong enough. The beat also felt flat in that nothing was put into the background in terms of the depth. But once again, I mean, there are definitely production styles that work like this, like I alluded to with like the sort of 90s, 2000s Neptune, Swiss Beats types of things. But once again, if you're gonna really pare down on just the one few handful of sounds, you got to make sure they're good. Even the percussion in this beat felt stocky as well. You could have definitely added some sort of hard processing on them. So that's something that a good example of this would be Numbers on the Board by Pusha T. That beat's very minimal, very simple. It's just a bunch of weird percussive sounds, but when you listen to those percussive sounds, it's not as if it's just like a simple little cowbell. The textures that are used in that beat are just so strange and unique that even though it's minimal, the sounds themselves are just so interesting that it stands on its own. And I think the comparison between that beat and this beat are pretty prominent in that we just did not have that sound or the texture in here that jumped out as something that is enough to sort of hold the attention of the listener for the entire time. Leon says, like the rhythm and flow, but it feels kind of empty and repetitive. I like the early 90s Salt and Pepper drum pattern. I did like the drum pattern, I will say. The sort of unique claps and whatnot and the placements definitely did add some value to the beat and made the beat feel more interesting. I feel like there needs to be a bit more variation on the verse, says Lassetti. So yeah, I think that's another point that I had here. I definitely do appreciate the arrangement effort. He did have different sections in the beat where he had like the bass really become a lot more present during I would say the hook or the bridge, and he definitely did have a switch up. But once again, if the core idea is just not enough to maintain the attention of the listener, whatever you do during the arrangements is just gonna become an uphill battle. So I think learning how to do some processing on some of the sounds and maybe even really pushing the different textures to be more interesting could have been how this beat could have really come together. So yeah, I think a good example of how a minimal beat like Numbers on the Board works, and really breaking down why does that beat work and why does it make sense, I think is just the processing and just how unique the textures are really does matter when you make a very minimal beat. So let's jump into Harmiter's beat here. So much like Cora beats, this was also a very close contender for both the Better Beatmaker favorite as well as my personal favorite. Yeah, I think this beat tied with Cora beats for how many votes it got right after Karasama's beat. So yeah, let's take a listen to Harmiter's beat here.
kind of light into your darkness. Close your eyes with what's not there. Raise the energy, come apart and you'll go blind. Some kind of light into your darkness.
See you later, Cora.
Close your eyes with what's not there.
So that was Harmiter's beat to Lenore. So yeah, like I mentioned, very, very close to winning as well. Let's see what you guys are saying about this beat. Love how the hats jump between the ears. Has a warm, dreamy feel. Really cool beat. The vocal sample usage is great. Great mellow but hard vibes. Soundscapes on point. So smooth. Love the drums. It's great music. Tyler the Creator vibes. So chill. So interesting to listen to. So yeah, I think much of what you guys are saying I definitely agree with. Phenomenal sound selection. The soundscape overall just really, really chill and calming to listen to. I really appreciate the vocal sample in that it's not as if Harmiter used a very typical type of vocal sample like from an R&B song. This sounds like it's from like, I don't know where it's from, like some sort of pop song from like the 90s or something. I think the attention to detail was great. The actual synths that were used that came in and out were just great. Don't really have much to say in terms of why I didn't like this beat. Everything was very well put together. I think the only thing that, I mean, it's completely subjective in that one of the things that Damien said is that this gives me Tyler the Creator vibes. I find for a lot of Tyler's music, some of the chord progressions that he uses are just things that just do not connect with me, in that, you know, that's just one of those things where certain chord progressions, certain sort of melodies really, really work with me because I like a very specific feel to my beats and my music that I personally listen to. I like darker music. I like aggressive music, and the chord progression that was used by Harmiter here, while it completely works and a lot of you guys felt very relaxed and whatnot, that's just not something that connects with me. And while I can definitely appreciate it on the surface level, when it comes to selecting it for my own personal favorite beat, it was just something that fell a little bit short of what Karasama did, just purely off the base of the chord progression just not being something that exists in me, if that makes sense. But yeah, from a purely subjective or objective standpoint, just phenomenal work. And obviously a lot of you guys in the chat, really it connected with you guys because, you know, some of you guys might be a fan of, for example, what Tyler the Creator does. That's just not something that I personally connect with. So yeah, good job to Harmiter nonetheless. he was actually the winner of the prior winter competition, so he's obviously someone who knows what he's doing. So it's not something like he fell short in this by any means. Got to go through all that emotion. Maybe I do need to live a life of luxury and relaxation. Maybe that would help here. Let's see what Mason did not submit. Let's see what Coolant Beats has for us here with his production. So we'll continue to listen to Sample Snitch. Mazzy Star. Is that what the artist is? Nice Mazzy Vox. Oh, I see. Is Mazzy Star like a 90s? What's the story on Mazzy Star? Can you let me know? So yeah, we'll keep going for another hour or 40 minutes, an hour for our reviews. And like I mentioned, even if you don't get your beat review during the stream, you will be getting a review from one of the Better Beatmaker members that will be over the next coming weeks as they go through them one by one. So yeah, let's jump into Coolant Beats here. All right, that was Coolant Beats. Phenomenal work in getting all these views, Coolant. This beat has 4,300 views, which it's awesome. It looks like Coolant is building his own fan base here, which is awesome to see. Coolant Beats. Let's just highlight him first. Let's see what you guys are saying here. The beauty of music, different strokes for different folks. No such thing as bad, just not for me. I don't know. I think it feels nice to say subjectively there's no such thing as bad music, but I do think there is such thing as bad music. There's definitely, what you say is true, is just that like a lot of music is, when people say that's a bad song, what they're really saying is that's not for me. But like if I listen to my beats that I made after 1 month of trying to learn how to make beats, I would go as far as saying I was making bad music just because it didn't make sense. So that's an argument for another day, though. So it is from the 90s. Interesting. The snare is so awesome. That snare is so crisp. Nice drums, slaps. Love the snare too. Entranced by that snare. Everyone loves the snare. The pitch bend strings are pretty sweet as well. Derek, happy to have you here, but hope you have a good weekend as well. The textures in this had me open. My epileptic brother loves this beat. That is dancing on the floor. Interesting. So yeah, with his beat, obviously it's awesome to see that it has so many views. I really love that. The Sharp says that perk loop goes hard. I didn't even pick up on there being a perk loop. I would agree that I really like the wobbly synth in this beat. Very cool, unique texture. Cool drum work as well. I like how that snare, it sounded like what he did was he added reverb onto it to make sure that space was filled in this beat. Otherwise it probably would have been a little bit more flat with just how minimal it is. So very smart idea to add a reverb onto the snare, but do so in a way that still maintained the strength and the sort of snappiness of the snare. So what I would imagine he did was add a layer of, he probably bussed the snare and added a reverb onto that layer, as opposed to putting snare or reverb directly onto the snare. So that's a technique that I talked about in a video that I did way back. I was definitely making bad music when I began. Ultimately, everything is subjective, but we need to agree on certain criteria to discern anything. Yeah, I agree with Jack. I do think that there are sort of pillars, sort of core principles in terms of what is considered good or bad, but I think what a more direct way of creating criteria is maybe effective versus ineffective. So if you're making music that doesn't create any emotion in anyone, that does not successfully sort of drive the idea that the creator originally wanted, I guess that would be what's considered a bad music. But ultimately what we're talking about is ineffective. I don't know. I made terrible music before, so I can't be a proponent of subjectivity. I still make terrible music. So with Coolant's beat here, I will say though that the one thing that jumped out to me with this beat in particular is that there are lots of long, sustained, very slow moving sounds with those sort of drony synths, as well as the very slow moving bass line, which isn't a bad thing by any means, but I think the beat definitely does need something that's a little bit more transient, a little bit more plucky in its shape, and I think Coolant did that smartly with a piano that came in every once in a while. So that definitely did add a lot more movement to the beat, and it fit in very well because that sound itself was a little bit more transient. It wasn't as long and sustained as the drony synth. So I think that idea that Coolant had was very, very smart of introducing that piano. I will say though, I wish that piano was a little bit more prominent in the beat in terms of where it sat. It felt very weak sounding in the beat, and it didn't really feel like it balanced well with the drony synth. I think part of the reason why is because it had a lot of the lower frequencies rooted out, just to make sure it sort of sat in the right space, in the open space, because there was nothing in that sort of high frequency range. But I think even if a different piano texture was used that sat a little bit more adjacent to the drones, but also had a little bit more weight in the lower end, that piano probably would have sounded good even when it got cranked up, because I imagine the reason why Coolant decreased how prominent that sound was because in fact it just didn't sound right in terms of where it sat, so you want to make it a little bit more quiet. But yeah, I think choosing a different piano and one that has a little bit more weight in the low end and just increasing how prominent that texture is would have really helped round the beat out a little bit more. But overall, I mean, the beat itself got 4,300 views, so that's a feat in itself. So good job to coolant on making that achievement. It's awesome to see him growing his own audience there. Awesome. Let's see what Buster Badass has for us. Tailgater. I'm gonna have to give the smooth fade out here. This beat's almost 5 minutes long. I want to give other people the chance here to get their beats heard, but yeah, with that beat there, just like Deleg mentioned, finally a guitar type beat. Rappers always pull up with beats like this. It's a very rapper friendly or very popular sound right now. Beautiful piano, says Leon. Thanks guys. I could hear Roddy Rich on this. Rod Wave, Kodak. I was thinking of my wife when I did this one. That's very kind and sweet. How nice. Very emotional vibes. Yeah, it definitely feels like a very emotional guitar type beat in a way. It's very well put together. All the sounds sat in a very good space. I think Buster here has a good conception of how to put different sounds together and making sure everything sits in the right space. All the different spaces felt like they were filled adequately. The drum work was great. Nothing jumped out to me as horrible or awful by any means. I would say that you know, it is a guitar type beat, and just to me, nothing really jumped out to me as something that sort of connects with me personally. I would have liked to hear Buster's, you know, his own personality come through, but then again, he said he wanted to make this for his wife, so it could be a very lovely love letter to her. Maybe she likes these types of beats, but nonetheless, you guys know my bone to pick with guitar type beats. I just like to see and hear non-popular, non-mainstream ideas, and I really want to support that because that's where innovation comes from, and I think that's how that's the only means of sort of standing out with your own production, because if you're doing exactly what everyone else can provide into the marketplace, then you get into the game of it's a race to the bottom. So the only way you can compete if you're providing the exact same product as everyone else is what typically everyone does, is make your beats cheaper and cheaper and give away more beats for free, as opposed to doing something that's very, very specific and something that not a lot of people can do. And that's when you can really start worrying about, or stop worrying about competition, because you just become so unique that there's no one that can really compete with you and do exactly what you do. That's something that I'm learning more and more with my own YouTube channel and my course as well. When I try to do things that have already been done by other people, those videos just never really take off because people are just bored by them. It's an idea that they've already seen. But when I start to sort of, introduce my own personality into my videos and really try to tackle ideas and subjects that and that people struggle with, and do so in a way that's a little bit more particular to my own way of learning, it really connects with people. Grimy Duck, good to have you, but I'll see you later. So we're gonna go for another half an hour. We'll do another handful of beats. Let's see what Caesar here has for us. Caesar Milan. So that is Hazard Beats with the new branding, new name change. We've got a hard to drill beat right there. I almost got myself into the trap of following the crowd and making beats that I don't like. Then I watched the marketing course and I snapped out of it. So actually, this morning I was reading on, I think it was Trap Production subreddit. This one person was talking about how at first they were trying to make very popular, very common types of beats under the sort of type beat framework of like Juice WRLD and very popular artists like that. And they mentioned that they weren't seeing much success They were struggling, and then what they did was they niched down and started to make beats for a very small particular UK artist, and they mentioned that their views like doubled instantly after making that switch. And so they just did something that's a little bit more particular, that's a little bit more unique, once again, that ideally they can do because that's their strength, that's where their interests lie, and they can just really get really good at it, as opposed to doing something that you don't really like doing, like Lissetti mentioned, and becoming somewhat mediocre and average just because you don't put the hours in, just because you have a lack of interest. And yeah, like I mentioned, this is something that I'm learning myself, where even with the course, whenever I have a very broad messaging with like, learn how to make beats, that just doesn't really resonate with anyone. But as soon as I start talking about what makes this a little bit more different and a little bit more unique, but it's sort of the idea that if you're talking to everyone, you're talking to no one. What you want to do is just really target what you do for a very small subset of people, but make yourself invaluable to those people. And people think that like, well, what if that's like, I want to chase the big numbers because that's where you can get much more attention and whatnot. But in fact, being invaluable to a very small set of people is much, much more powerful. So, you know, I could have made my YouTube video channel on like how to make music in general. I don't think I would have gotten as much success as if I just really niched down on like how to make hip hop beats. And then even more further than that, I seem to be the guy that does well with boom bap. A lot of my boom bap tutorials are really things that people enjoy. And so I'm just really jumping down that avenue as well. So again, that's what it is. Sharp Vision says, I love Reddit. Personally, I fucking hate Reddit. I don't like it there. I'll look on Reddit every once in a while just to see what the sort of production community is talking about, to maybe get some ideas for my beats or my videos, sorry. But overall, I fucking hate Reddit. That's what my takeaway is. So with this beat, tight drums, it's really drill inspired. The sounds that come and go are fire, says Lissetti. I like the grittiness of this beat, and the vocal chop goes really nicely. Helps to be in the room with a recording artist. So yeah, with this beat, I really enjoyed the textures that were used. This sort of cool, like Middle Eastern-esque sample and sound with the textures that were used. The drum pattern was cool, just a very unique, I mean, with a lot of drill beats, they can sort of fall into a very specific format of how they're put together. I think this beat really goes out of its way to like break convention a tiny bit, because the kick pattern was really cool and the bass notes where they were placed were very unique. And just like Lissetti mentioned, the sounds that come and go and the way they come and go in and out of the beat are just really, really cool. I really enjoyed that. Yeah, I think it's awesome to see how you sort of wanted to break the conventions of a lot of drill beats and try to do your own thing. It definitely helped this sound not like any other random drill beat that you can hear on the internet. Really love the vocal sample as well. I'm not sure, this is going to be completely my own thing. I think the kicks were a tiny bit boomy, but I have noticed that in this room, kicks typically sound a bit more boomy. So I'm just going to completely say that that might be something on my end. But yeah, didn't really find that like there's anything at fault with this beat. It felt like a very strong drill beat. It was manufactured in a very cohesive way. Very unique textures that were used. Overall, great job, Caesar. Jack says, too many fedora tipping atheist intellectuals on Reddit. To me, the problem that I have, where I was going to have a detour here, what annoys me about Reddit is just where so many miserable people go to complain. It's like the amount of negativity and the amount of people that are just like dissatisfied. I mean, you got to think about like what type of person would spend like 8 hours of their day actually on Reddit commenting, talking to people. It's probably not a person who's really engaged by anything else, I would imagine. And so I think that type of person would probably just be a little bit more dissatisfied in a way, and I think that really resonates with the way people talk on that site and the way people interact and argue with each other. Is just so much misery that gets poured out in every direction from everyone on Reddit. It's just a very unpleasant place. So that's why I fucking hate it. Moving on, let's listen to Jesse's beat here, Blood Rose. I think I remember liking this beat. Let's take a listen. All right, that was a Blood Rose. That's 68 BPM. Quite slow, but still phenomenal beat. All right, so that was by Too Hazy slash Jesse. So yeah, that was an awesome beat. Let's see what you guys are saying here. This beat shakes. I like it. Everything melts together really well. It's a me type beat. Yeah, this is something that would fall into my wheelhouse, I would say. Very cool POI, both on the bass and the melody. Really love that one. So yeah, I think the textures here in this beat were there's great processing on them. Nothing felt like it was like a stock sound. It was like a piano and a flute, but both of them felt like they had a lot of character to them, and they also had processing on them that really helped them jump out. Especially, it sounded like the flute, I think the flute had some filtering going on. It was used in a very unique way throughout the beat. I might be wrong. That might be a second instrument though. The drums were solid. The overall, the core idea was awesome. I really liked the very dark, very brooding sound. I think that was the intent of the beat, and I think that Too Hazy definitely knocked it out of the park in terms of getting the idea on paper and having it translate. I think everyone picked up on it. The melody, which to me was the POI, that piano, phenomenal. It really carried the beat. Well programmed, the musicality was there. Once again, this was also a close winner for my own pick, but I think the thing that, once again, this beat sort of lacked was that I would have liked a little bit more in terms of the arrangement of just creating a section where there's a clear hook that like adds energy. I think a lot of the times with this beat there was a lot of reduction in terms of the different sections, which is definitely fine if you're building like a bridge or a breakdown. Nonetheless, I would like to see the opposite as well, where you learn how to add more sounds into your beat in a cohesive way and still have it sound good, but also add energy. So I think that's exactly what was missing with this beat. That kind of really brought it over the top. So yeah, very close to winning. Just that one small lack of arrangement, I think, held it back. So let's do 2 more reviews, and then the rest of the beats will get reviewed once again over the coming weeks by the fellow Better Beatmaker members. So Morris, let's see what Prod by Morris has for us. All right, that was Morris's beat there. A strong beat for sure. KODB says this was on his list for voting. This is cool. I really like the vibe. This beat has mad potential, says hear that. I feel good because I like this beat. I like the instruments and the 808 pattern. The arrangement is nice. Great potential, but feels like the sounds are a bit thin, says John. Dope, the bass is clean. Word, definitely. So I think I definitely do agree this beat had a lot of good ideas in it. I really liked the sounds that were used. I really liked the overall sort of core idea of this beat and the sort of mood that it creates. I do think that what John mentioned stood out to me as well, which is that the core sounds in this beat, obviously outside of the drums and the bass, one is that synth and one is like a brass sound. And I think they just sat in a very small space, both very close to each other. And I think that's what sort of hurt the beat ultimately. What I probably would have done was take that synth and maybe let it sit in the middle and be a little bit more of the sort of sound in the center, but taken that brass and maybe pushed it back in terms of depth and maybe split it in terms of its stereo presence. So you have that synth that sits somewhat in the middle, and then you have this sort of brass sounds that sits outside of it and is a little bit more secondary. And I think that would have really helped create a little bit more balance in the beat and also filled up more space in the beat as well, just because what John mentioned is that the sounds feel a bit thin. I mean, I think that's mostly because they sit in a similar area, but there's not enough sitting in the outside areas. Morris definitely does have these small little textures like the vocal sample and whatnot that come in and out, and I think that definitely did help fill up the beat a lot more. But in terms of the sort of two core sounds that were used in this beat, the idea or the fact that they were a little bit too close to each other in terms of where they sat in the space could have hurt the beat, and maybe pushing one of the sounds to be a little bit more secondary and one to be a little bit more primary could have helped fill up the beat a lot more and just have everything sound a little bit more large. But definitely the way that the sounds themselves that were used were great, and I do think the core direction of the beat was phenomenal. This felt like a Travis Scott-esque type beat in my opinion, but I think the small little changes needed to be done. It has nice sunset colors. I really want to learn how to incorporate vocals on the beat like this beat. You know, what's one thing that has jumped out to me as well with this competition, which is adding vocals to your beat can really, really help improve it. Last up, let's listen to, let's listen to John Sherby. He's had phenomenal feedback for everyone. So let's listen to what Jay Sherb has for us.
Previously on X-Men.
I remember listening to this growing up. That's the X-Men theme. Let me sure. Yeah, my mic is still working. Flo, good to see you. Thank you for popping by. But yeah, this is fire. Gotta love the X-Men animated series. So I tried something different with this and made a beat battle beat, not necessarily something someone can rap on. I see. One of my faves intro is fire. This is my favorite beat so far. I get that some beats are meant to be songs on their own. This is intense, says Leon. Definitely out of my zone here, says Sherb. So yeah, definitely a novel feeling beat. Like you mentioned, you wanted it to be a beat battle beat. That's not necessarily something that I have much experience in. So with that said, take my advice with a grain of salt here. I think the overall core idea is really cool with the sort of novel X-Men idea, but ultimately it's like this heavy guitar. And I liked I think you did a lot of filtering, because I don't remember the sample having that much minimal sections. I think it's a pretty over-the-top intro theme. So it sounds like you did some filtering onto the sample to create the lows, which is nice. Jack says, I love the wildness and attitude of it. It has the same vibes as an unreleased Danny Brown JPEG Mafia song. I think what I would have liked, since this is a beat battle type of beat, is more drops, I would say, to control the ups and downs and really create like the swell into the high energy area. I think one of the things that maybe hurt your ability to do that is just because this sample, I think I tried sampling this like a decade ago. It's just such a dense, huge sample that it's hard to really find pieces of it that you can use to create the more minimal parts of your beat. It also sounded like there was some slight distortion. I'm not sure whether, like a slight clipping, I should say. I'm not sure whether there's a limiter that you added, but it sounded like maybe something went over 0 decibels and created a little bit of distortion, especially towards the end I heard it. Ultimately, though, I think the chopping was a little bit not as sort of robust as I would have liked either. So one of the things that you did was just repeat the same chop over and over again, but I think once again is due to the sample itself just being such a hard one to use with, where there's just not that many pieces that you could have used in order to sort of create variation throughout the beat. So yeah, I think overall, really cool idea, really cool novel idea. Very large, very tough sounding beat. I think just the sort of sample usage, while you might have thought, they made that core idea with the beat, and it definitely sounded cool. I think you probably ended up getting stuck because the sample itself just did not offer enough material to sort of push the arrangement and do a lot of different things that help keep the beat interesting, especially for like a beat battle beat where certain parts need to be like really punch you in the face and come in and like really have these strong transitions. But yeah, overall, John Sherby and I hear beats the exact same way. It seems like he has a lot of advice that I have, so it's interesting. This is probably a beat that I would have made way back as well when I first started, just because that X-Men theme's awesome. Nonetheless, guys, the 2 hours of the review are up. Thank you all for coming. Once again, congratulations to all the winners, which is Mixter Mom, Karasama, Yo Nerdly, and Karasama again. Once again, so many of these beats were phenomenal, and it's really, really awesome to hear how much your guys' beat quality has improved, especially for the members that have been here for a while, that have been listening to your beats for months and months and months. It's amazing how much progress you've all made. I've listened to every one of these beats, by the way, to make my choices, obviously, and it's very heartening to see how much progress a lot of you guys have made, so that makes me very happy. And so congratulations on just all the progress that you've made so far. Shout out to me for dropping a band on my students. Hey, you gotta give back, because you guys have given me a lot, so I want to make sure you guys stay having fun in the course. I'm going to be making some very, very substantial changes to the course. That's going to be months from now, though, later this year, which all you guys are going to get free access to. But the course is going to go through a pretty dramatic shift coming in probably November, December. I'm going to be adding like a lot of exercises into the course, because I think that's one thing that's lacking. And I also want to change the curriculum a bit because I don't think the course starts off in the strongest way possible. So yeah, that's just one thing that I'll be talking about more and more as the months go on, because I want your guys' input on things that you'd like to see. One of the things, like I mentioned, is that I want to start adding exercises for you guys to do in the course. The competitions that I do, or sorry, the challenges that I give you guys every 2 weeks with this is one thing, and a lot of people have said that that's definitely helped them improve a lot more because I push you guys out of your comfort zone. But I want to also institute that into the course itself, so that's something that I want to do. But yeah, let me know if you guys have any feedback on like things that you'd like to see in the course curriculum, whether maybe it's topics that I might not have covered. Hopefully it's something that I can actually help with, but also some ideas like adding more exercises, things that are a little bit outside the box that you might think that would be a pretty cool idea to see. Feel free to reach out and let me know, because that's something that I definitely want to do. Yeah, thank you all for coming. Hope you have a wonderful week, and in 2 weeks we'll go back to the regular challenges. Please make YouTube shorts again. They are very inspiring. I actually learned some stuff from them. So the YouTube shorts are actually the same things that, I mean, those are all ripped from my YouTube videos, so that's all stuff that I've already done. But yeah, thank you guys for coming, and this has been fun that I'm back in this, I'm in this new space, so you guys will be seeing the YouTube videos with his backgrounds. You guys got to see a sneak peek, but hopefully you had fun, and I'll see you guys in 2 weeks for the next challenge. And yeah, see you guys. Bye bye.